Hey everyone, Ken here helping you today with learning your Everwebinar tool that will automate your business in a huge way. Everwebinar is a friendly user system that allows you to create and upload a pre-recorded video or host your own live webinar. Now, you can offer your services and sell them, send automatic notifications to remind your audience of your webinar, and more. Now, Everwebinar does have training videos for the product. So you might wonder why I'm taking the time to share this with you. Well, it's easy. When we put our first webinar together, we found it a little difficult that we had to leave the page every time to view the tutorial video and then go back and forth. And so it really fragmented the learning process for us. Now, as a reminder, I'll be going fast today, but the beauty of technology, well, you can slow me down by clicking the HD little icon there on YouTube video and selecting the speed. Not to mention you can pause and obviously rewind. Everyone tracks at their own pace, so the power, well, it's in your hands. Okay, so today we're going to cover how to create your Everwebinar account and how to set up your first automated webinar step by step. All so you can focus on what matters most: creating connections, meeting with clients, and making money. The beauty of having a pre-recorded webinar is the freedom it gives you to focus on gaining more clients and to nurture the ones that you already have. Attendees can purchase directly from you, they can book appointments with you, and even send you messages while they're watching. Imagine you could have 5 webinars running at the same time and you aren't spending any extra time sending invites to the webinar 2 to 3 weeks in advance, worrying about your attendance ratio, and even technical issues. Okay, so first things first, you need to create your Everwebinar account at everwebinar.com. On the top right corner, click sign up, and on the next page, enter your payment information. This is a one-time payment which gives you access to all the features Everwebinar has to offer. The most important, I'll be going over on this video. Upon making a payment and creating your account, you'll receive a welcome email with access credentials, so be on the lookout for it. Once received, grab that link that you received by email and go to everwebinar.com, click on the login button, enter your credentials, and click sign in. On the next screen, you're going to want to access Everwebinar, so click on the green access button to begin, and voila, you're in. On the dashboard, you have quick access to the tools that you need to create and check your webinar stats. The most important tabs are My Webinars. This is where you find your current webinars. Then you have New Webinar. This is where the magic happens. All the building takes place. We're going to go over on this video here. The next tab is Analytics. Under this tab, you can see how your webinars are performing. And the last tab is Training. Here you can find articles to help you troubleshoot or find out more about certain topics. Now, other helpful tabs are My Account, where you find your billing information, integrations, and webinar usage. And then you have your Community tab, which redirects you to Everwebinar Facebook group. It comes in handy when you have a quick question. Simply join the page when prompted and post your comments or questions. Someone will definitely help you. And finally, you also have the Support tab, where you can send tickets to Everwebinar support team. Are you ready? Now that all that's out of the way, let's build a webinar. So to start, you want to click New Webinar, okay? Now, something I want to point out before we really get rolling is that each of the tools to build the webinar have a play button to watch a short tutorial for that specific tool. It's helpful when you forget how to do something and need a refresher, just not the most helpful when you need to have that big download, the big brain dump, so you know what the big picture is with all of this. All right, so before you start building your webinar configuration, make sure that you've recorded your video. This video you will need to upload to your YouTube account so you can produce a link that will later be used for the configuration of the webinar. Now, don't worry, I'll show you how to build your YouTube account if you don't have one and how to upload your video. For training today, well, let's assume that you've already uploaded your video, you've got all your webinars done for your clients, and the YouTube video link is available, okay? So the first step is to configure the source of the webinar. Now here you have two options to choose from. You want to select an external video file, and this tab will expand down and you'll see two fields. In the URL field to the left, you'll copy paste the link provided by YouTube after you uploaded your video. Now below this field, there's a note that reminds you of what type of videos you can upload. Now we normally recommend YouTube because it's user-friendly, but you can certainly use a different format or source, okay? The next field is the duration of your video, where you will enter how long your video is. Make sure to be exact here. Even if the video is only 45 minutes long, make sure you enter double zeros in the hour field. Do not leave it blank. And you'll probably learn as we go along on this lesson here. So once you've confirmed this information is accurate, click the green button, Confirm, in order to save all your settings. Now you can see, instead of the red Not Configured message, the new status of this section is green. So this part is ready. The next step is basic configuration. In this section, you'll enter the name of the webinar. This is for your reference only. It will help identify all your webinars when trying to make changes or reviewing analytics. Next is the webinar title. This is what your potential registrants will see. The maximum characters allowed is 70, so keep it short but compelling to attract viewers. Also, use content-rich keywords. Using titles that contain a question that begin with how, what, and which are lead magnets. So make sure to create a title that contains one of these words at least. Next, you're going to want to add a description to your webinar with a maximum of 150 characters. The idea is to give people a good reason to watch your webinar. Make sure that you've established what problem you're solving, how you can solve that problem, and what benefits they will receive. Some of the registration templates you might choose later on will have areas where you can type all this information in, so be prepared for that. The next field is webinar language, which by default is English. This, well, you can leave as is. The last field is webinar on demand. Now here, you can choose to list your webinar to the Everwebinar public directory where other users can find you based on their interests and register for your presentation. If you choose to do so, which we recommend, upload a promo picture of your webinar and select the category that fits your topic. Now, once you complete this section, hit the Confirm button to save these settings that we have put in, okay? Now, let's add the information about the webinar presenter. Click the pencil to display the fields, then click on the host information to start editing your information, which includes typing a brief bio. By default, you'll see the name and email address associated with the Everwebinar account, so if you wish to change this at this point, simply start by typing the name and email address that you really want to use. You also have the choice to either be a moderator or a presenter. In this case, well, you want to be a presenter. Finally, click the Save button and continue to confirm the changes by clicking the Confirm button. Now, we're done with the main configuration, so let's move on to the next step. Click the Next button to continue. You now want to set the automatic times that the webinar will be playing and allow registrations for the next available webinar. Click on the pencil to begin. And you should know that many automated webinars are set for just-in-time option, okay? Which gives registrants a very small window to register, usually between a few minutes up to 15 minutes. The reason this is done is to create this sense of urgency. Someone that is really interested in what you're offering will register and watch the webinar right in that moment. Now, statistics claim that just-in-time webinars have a 70 to 85% show-up rate, which is really good, but the reality is, well, not everyone has the flexibility, and you want to give them more days to choose from. So let's choose the times and days. Under the webinar schedule field, you want to choose every option from the dropdown. Now, you may ask, what are the best days to have a webinar? Well, based on marketing data, Tuesdays and Thursdays have the most engagement. You want to leave Mondays and Fridays out. People are trying to focus on their work ahead on Mondays, and on Fridays, well, there's a reason why TGIF exists, right? Everybody wants to unwind, which results in low engagement. Weekends, especially Sundays, are low converting days, but adding Saturday to the schedule, at least for one time slot, would work. What about Wednesdays? Engagement varies on that day. Some market researchers say it's high, some others don't even mention it. Stats definitely change, so just make sure that you add it to your schedule and monitor to see how it does. With this in mind, let's choose the days for your webinar. Click on the day field and select one day for the week. Let's select Tuesday in this case. Then you want to select a time for that day. Another common question is, what's the best time for a webinar? Well, just like choosing the best day, you need to figure out what works best for the audience that you're trying to target. If you're only scheduling for just in time, this is a non-issue, of course. But if you're adding more times, consider between 11 and 2 p.m. Generally speaking, these are good, right? Due to breaks and lunch, things of that nature. But you'll also want to have other audiences that can only watch at night. So make sure that you create a balanced schedule. Click on the time field and use the up and down arrows to choose the time in hours and minutes and the time of day, okay? Now, let's select the time zone. The best option to choose from this is the user's time zone, which is the auto detection. Now, however, if you are only focusing on a localized market, then probably go ahead and choose the time zone that you'd like to target in that case. When all that's done, click the blue add button, and your webinar is now set for every Tuesday at 1 p.m. at the user's own time zone. Now, you need to know that this cannot be edited. If you want to change this series, you must delete it by clicking the red X and start all over. You can continue adding more days and have other variations where you can choose the same day at various times or only show on 2 different days with 1 time slot for each day. The next field is the replay. Now, during the webinar registration, you don't want users to watch the replay of the webinar, right? So offer this after they've watched the webinar by checking the No, Don't Enable option. As I mentioned earlier, you can offer the just-in-time registration option, which I highly recommend. Now, to offer this option, just make sure that the blue check mark is set for yes, enable it, under the just-in-time schedule field. Now, if you want to hide your schedule at night to give it more of a live feeling, select the times in which you don't want people to register. For example, restrict registrations from, let's say, 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. Now, you want to choose how often each next available session will allow registrations if someone chooses to register just in time, okay? The default is every 15, 30, 45 minutes or on the hour. We recommend you keep it this way. Basically, no matter what time somebody comes in, there will be, oh wow, there's a webinar that's happening in 15 minutes or less is basically what you want. Now, next is the display schedule option. So let's say that you offer 3 available schedules. This means that on the registration page, the user that visits your page on Monday night will see the next 2 available options based on the schedule that you chose. In this case, Tuesday at 12 p.m. and Wednesday at 8 p.m. in addition to just in time. Making sense so far? Okay, so if you want to give them more options, simply change the schedule availability. This is helpful if you have a weekend series. For instance, we usually offer up to 5 available sessions. Now, you could do the same. You can also choose to block last-minute registrations. However, this will defeat the purpose of the just-in-time option. Now, unless you're doing a live class or training through Everwebinar, choose not to block any day and allow for short notice registrations. If you're going to go on a vacation or will be out for the holidays, obviously you would block those days here. Click the calendar icon to open to choose the dates that you want to block. Once selected, it'll be displayed on the block holiday field. Hit the add button to save this date By default, December 24th, 25th, and 31st are blocked along with January 1st. You'll have to do the rest. Once you've chosen all the dates you want to block, save your changes and click Next to continue. The next step is creating your registration page and process. A registration page is the landing page your registrants will see first. To begin, you're going to click the pencil and open the registration page and process tab. You can use two different registration pages to track which one gives you the most registrations. This is called split testing. So let's enable split testing by clicking on the white radio button. It'll turn blue when enabled and will also display the A/B split. Now you need to know that you can use your own design or website here, okay? But we recommend that you use one of the templates to save you time, and even though these templates are pre-made and ready to be used, you can customize them and use your own images, text, and colors. What doesn't change is the layout of the template. That's the big deal. But really, I don't think that's going to make any difference in attracting new registrations. If you want to see which templates score better and get more registrations, click the sort by field and choose best converting from the dropdown. If you noticed, the templates are now rearranged and you can select one for split test A. Select either one that scores the best or whichever you like the most and fits the message your audience, the audience that you're trying to target, okay? Let's use the first template, so click on it to customize, as you can see here. Now, you will see how the registration page you selected is going to look like at this point. Now, first you have the title of the webinar and right below the call to action. There's also a countdown for the next available webinar, the schedules that you had already created, and the information about the webinar presenter. Now, there are certain fields that you can customize, and one of these fields is the title of the webinar. So let's make a couple of changes to see how it works. Let's change the first letter of the title from lowercase to a capital letter. First, hover over the title. The dotted box will appear around the title with options to delete or edit. Click the blue pencil to edit, and now you can customize the text and the background color. To change the color, just drag the cursor to any of the colors in the bar, then move your cursor inside the spectrum, the color spectrum there, to change the tone of the color. If you already have branding colors and you know the color codes, just type in the code on the field. If you're a network coach, well, you can use the color codes which you see here. These are all the UGRU color codes. Follow the same steps if you'd like to change the text color. Now, although we suggest you keep it as it is, it's pretty simple. It's not going to be the biggest deal in the world. Click the Save button to save the changes. And going on from that, the next editable field that is the picture of the presenter. That would be you and your bright, shiny smile. To upload your picture, hover over the presenter section until you see the pencil and the X icons and click the pencil. Now, click on the picture icon to upload your favorite image, and you can also edit the presenter's name or bio here. If there's another presenter that you wish to add, click the Add Presenter Plus sign to add and just simply follow the same steps. In this case, we'll only use one presenter, so let's save these changes. Another change you can make is the background of this page. To do this, hover over the top right corner of the background and click the pencil to customize. You can choose between uploading an image or just changing the color. If you make any changes, click the Save button. If not, click Cancel. One last thing is uploading your logo. If you don't, the Webinar Jam logo will display, and if you do have one, hover over the Webinar Jam logo at the top of the screen that you see and click the pencil to edit it, okay? You'll be prompted to upload an image from your computer, and once you've uploaded it, the picture it will show obviously on the page like you see here. Now, for network coaches, you can find the logo, the UGRU logo in the coach's corner, so you can be on the lookout for that. And if you're happy with all the changes at this point, then it's time to save your template. Hit the green Actions button at the top of the screen, and from the available options, click Save. Now you can also preview the page so that you know exactly what the users will see. To see your work, click on the Preview button. Now, once the preview is ready, click Open Preview. This preview will open on a different page, so close it. So to close it, just exit this page that you see here. After reviewing, you are now ready to move to the next template. Click the Actions buttons and click the Save and Exit option. So split testing option A is done. The template you selected is now highlighted in green with a check mark on it. Okay? To create the second template, move the dial from A to B. Now select a new template and follow the same steps that we used with the first template to customize it. On this particular template, you can modify the title, add a description, change the background and upload a new picture, edit the name of the presenter or the schedule field by typing a new name and the call to action button. Once finished with your changes, don't forget to save and exit or save and preview like we did on split test A. Now you have 2 templates ready to go. Make sure to hit the confirm button to save your work. Then the next step is the registration fields. Click the pencil to begin editing. By default, the available fields are first name and email. To add the last name and phone number fields, click on the plus sign next to the field, and it will be automatically added to the column on the right. Some of these fields are already pre-selected as mandatory. First name and email address would be those that they're the most common information that anyone would provide. The other 2 we just added that can be checked mandatory by clicking the white radio button next to the field that you see here. Uncheck if you want to move the mandatory field status and click confirm when finished. Now, the next 2 tabs, charge to register to the webinar and password protection, don't need to be configured currently. Webinars are set to be free of charge and there's no password required to enter the webinar room. And you want to keep them this way because any charges that you're going to do on like the $20 webinar, the $199 webinar, those are going to be paid through the registration process that we have on your pages anyway. And that's what Jot forms are for that we talked about in one of your other lessons. All right, so let's move on to the notifications section by clicking the next button. This section allows you to create email reminders to be sent automatically to webinar registrants. Text messages can be sent as long as you have the messaging system configured with Twilio. Everwebinar does not offer text messaging. It only serves as a conduit to deliver them. So first, let's edit how the messages will be sent. Click the pencil to edit the email tab. The default option that you'll see is for the email to be sent through Everwebinar server, and you want to keep it this way. Now, the sender name and email address will be those associated with your Everwebinar account. If you choose to change any of this information, just replace the current information with the new, okay? The messaging option will remind your registrants about the upcoming webinar 15 minutes before it starts, and if you don't want to use the text messaging option, you don't have to configure anything at this point. If you choose to use it, you'll need to set up a messaging gateway. Now, Everwebinar recommends Twilio as it has the most competitive rates. To use their service, you have to set up an account with Twilio. Click the gray button to read the instructions on how to create the account and set up your token and obtain a phone number. Now, once you've obtained this information, you'll enter it on the available fields in the call or the SMS selection. Now that you've configured this section, let's move to the actual notifications. The first option is the registration email. This is the welcome email registrants receive after registering. To configure, click the pencil to the right of the message called Immediately. Everwebinar provides a template for this email, but you can add or remove as much information as you see necessary. However, we'll provide these templates for you in the Coach's Corner. Now, at the top, you'll want to find the email subject, which you can modify right here. In the body of the email, you have a simple template with all of the information the registrant will need, such as the title and description of the webinar, the presenter, including a picture also, okay? Including that, or in addition to, the date and time of the webinar, along with a link to access the webinar will be there too. Now, some of the information that you see has words with hashtags at the beginning and end of those words. These are known as short codes or tagging codes. These short codes are the keywords within a page that defines what this code should do when it's put in place. Okay? In other words, if the short code has the hashtag symbols with the word title in between, the code will be replaced by the actual title of the webinar. This is exactly how your operations library in UGRU software works. So once the email is sent, the receiver will no longer see this short code. So let's test this email, and you can see how it looks upon receipt. You'll want to scroll down to the bottom of the page and type your email address to send yourself a test. Then click Send Test Email. Now check your email inbox to confirm receipt, and as you can see, the short codes have been replaced with the information that we had already saved during the configuration of the webinar. Here's a webinar title, the description, the date, etc. Okay? Now, because this is only a test, we won't be able to see the current link to the webinar or the picture of the presenter. But when it's live, all of these will be replaced with the correct information. Now that you have a visual of what your registrants will see, you can go back to Everwebinar and make some changes or save the email as is. You can also send pre-webinar reminders, which I highly recommend. And to do this, click the Add Email button and the template is ready for you. Okay, but again, we will provide those for you in Coach's Corner. Now, we just want to make sure you learn the process of setting these up in case you want to modify them. You can choose when to send the reminder, which we recommend setting 24 hours in advance, and the day of. And just as the previous email, you can edit this as much as you see fit. Just make sure to save when finished. The next option is the last-minute reminder, which is sent 15 minutes before the webinar starts. This can be an email along with a text message and even a pre-recorded phone call if you want. But you'll want to use the email and text only here probably. Now, to add a text message alert, click the Add SMS button. Then type the message that you want to send and click Save. If you want to send yourself a test, enter your phone number and hit the Send Test SMS button. You can set up more pre-webinar reminders if you'd like. Just make sure to send valuable information, such as more detailed information about what people will learn in your webinar, the benefits of attending, or anything that will keep them engaged and wanting to attend. Obviously, you don't want to put them off at this point. Now, the next option is to post is the post webinar message. Now, if you're offering a replay of your webinar, there is a template with a link to allow your registrants to watch the webinar. Click the Add Email button and choose when you want that email to be sent. By default, it's set to be sent 24 hours after. You can keep 24 hours after, and you can keep it this way. Now, you'll want to choose who to make this replay available to. So to do that, select from the drop-down the group receiving the replay. You can select any one of these group members here. Okay. To those who attended but left before a specific time, right? You can set that time here, and once you've finished, make sure to hit the green Confirm button to save your work. Stick with me. We're halfway there. I know this is a lot, but just hang in there, okay? The next step is integrations, but we'll leave this one out for now as it's not applicable at this time. Click the next button to continue to move to the next configuration, which is the thank you page. Now, here you can choose from one of the webinar templates provided, one of the templates provided by Everwebinar, and create a post-registration survey to learn more about your registrants. So let's start with customizing your thank you page. Choose any one of the templates available. You can even choose one that looks most similar to any of the registration pages that you previously created. And click the Customize button to begin. On this page, you can edit some of the fields just as we did on the registration page, so make sure you follow the same steps. You can change the headline, the title of the webinar, the call to action button, the background, and the presenter. After making all the necessary changes, click the Actions button at the top of the screen, then save and exit the template. The template that you've chosen is now highlighted and ready to save your changes. If you want to offer a quick survey to your registrants right after they register, they can create it here. This survey will be available on the thank you page. If you don't want to create a survey, select No, do not display a thank you survey page and confirm your changes. Otherwise, click on the white dial next to Yes to create the thank you page survey. This will open the survey form. Now you have 4 modules to choose from. The first and second options are polls. Click the plus sign to add the poll to the survey. With option 1, you can add 1 question with several answers, but the registrant can only choose 1 answer. Once the poll has been added, type the question and below type a poll answer. Click the add button to add more answers, okay? Now don't add too many answers. After all, it's just a quick survey. 5 answers would be fine. Make sure to add the headline text to the survey. Now you can keep the default headline, or you can get creative and type something different. If you decide to use a different survey, click the top red X icon on the first poll answer to delete the current survey. The other survey options allow a poll with multiple answers, a question with a short answer, or a question with a long answer. The long and short answers allow the user to type their own response to your question. All right, now once you've chosen one of the survey modules and entered the questions and answers, click Confirm to save your work. The next step is the live section. Here we configure how your webinar is going to look like. You can create polls, ask questions, enable a live chat, make an offer of your product or service, and more. To make it look all as though it's live, which gives an air of social proof, and you're going to want that. So let's start customizing the countdown page. Users will see this page right before the webinar begins if they access the webinar room before the time they originally scheduled, or when they have chosen the just-in-time option. And just like the thank you or registration page, you can choose from one of the available templates. Make sure to choose one that matches your other pages to ensure that the user gets familiar with you or your brand. Now click on the template to begin customizing. The fields you can edit here are the title of the webinar, the presenter's information, and the background. To make changes, remember to hover over the area that you want to edit and click on the blue pencil to begin. When done, click on any area of the page or click the Save button when given this option. Next is the webinar polls. Polls allow user engagement. The question of the poll as well as the answers are provided by you in this case. And if you choose to display the results of the poll, you can also determine what the outcome is. The user will feel as though the attendees are very engaged, and it also gives the feeling of a live event. Not to mention, it's a visual way for you to make them think about things or even answer a question that you might consider they're thinking about at that time without taking a sidestep and saying, oh, by the way, you might be thinking this and that and the other thing. So this is really good for that, so you can keep the flow of your webinar, but those questions and the answers that come up will satisfy those little mental deviations that people have that keep them from listening to what you're saying, because you want them to listen to what you are saying. So let's create a poll. Now click on the Add New Poll button to open the form. Type your question here. Let's say, for example, what is your primary financial goal? Then give some possible answers. If you want to add more answers, click the Add Another Option button. When ready, click Save to move to the next step. Now you can enter when you want the poll to pop during your webinar. Enter the hour, minute, and seconds that you want it to appear and when you want the poll to end. Then choose if you want to show the results to the audience, okay? If you do, then you need to include what percentage of the audience answered each of the options given. When done, click Save. Your poll is now available and it will pop during the webinar as per the time that you predetermined. You can add as many polls as you wish. If you'd like to add another, simply follow the prior steps. Just make sure to hit the Confirm button to save your work. All right, so let's now move on to the live chat option. Here you can choose if you want to enable the chat, if you want to simulate a live chat, or allow users to ask questions and receive them directly in your inbox. Our favorite option is the latter because it gives the opportunity to the user to ask as many questions as they like, and you can actually answer them right at the moment that they ask, opening lines of communication. This could generate a sale or scheduling an appointment, which is what you ultimately want, right? But let's go through each option so you have a better understanding of how they work. First is the disable chat option. It's checked by default. Next is the enable live chat. And here you'll predetermine what questions or comments pop through the webinar. You can enter what time they appear in hours, minutes, and seconds, who is asking or commenting, what the role is, and whether the presenter or the attendee, and the line of text for the comment or question, okay? Then you have the mode. Choose between chat or question. Now, depending on what line of text you're entering, okay? When you're done with each line, hit the add button. Now you can add as many chat lines as you'd like, and if you do, make sure the questions or comments are in line with the content of your webinar. In other words, if you're talking about creating an emergency fund, then the chat should display comments related to that specific topic. You don't want to make references to, obviously, selling a home, for instance. That's why it's so important that the chat lines pop and disappear during a specific time frame. Another option that can save you some time is importing your chat log, which is the line of text or questions and answers and comments, the roles and specific times for that chat to appear into a CSV file. The benefit of doing this is that it allows you to import all the information at once in this section. If you use the CSV file option, click on the import button from CSV file to see how the format of the CSV should look like in order for you to prepare it accordingly. For those that don't know what a CSV or comma-separated value file is, it's basically an Excel spreadsheet, but the numbers and text are stored where each line of the file is a data record separated by commas. Now, if you're operating from an Excel file with your data, you can simply click Save As in Excel and select CSV so you have the correct file for Everwebinar. If instead of a live chat simulation, you want attendees to send you a question directly to your email, then select the Display a Question box option. By doing so, all questions or concerns will be sent to your inbox at the specific time the attendee is sending the message. Now, once you select this option, you'll be asked to enter the email address you wish the notifications to go to. And that's it. Then hit confirm. Now you can answer any questions at any time through your emails. Our next step is the feedback flow announcements. Just like the chat configuration, these messages pop during the webinar at specific times and at the bottom of the screen. One way to use this space is to add a testimonial or review from one of your clients to give you credibility, okay? Or you can add anything else that you think is worth announcing. What you want to do is first enter the time in hours, minutes, and seconds for the feedback to appear during the webinar. Then enter the name of the person quoting the feedback, and finally, enter the quote or testimonial you want to display. Lastly, enter how long you want the message to display for, and click the Add button to save this feedback line. Pretty simple. Once it's saved, you can continue adding as many lines as you'd like. Click Confirm to save, and let's move on to the next step. Now, the offer section is key here. Why? Well, this is the call to action that will direct your attendees to buy your services or schedule an appointment, and you want to make this available at key times during your presentation. To add an offer, click on the Add Offer button. Then enter the time in hours, minutes, and seconds that you want the offer to display. Repeat this step in the field below by adding the time that you want the offer to end. Now, remember that it's very important that the times you are entering here match with the current content of the webinar. The best practice is to get your timing right, is to re-watch your webinar once you've recorded it, and just watch it on your computer or on YouTube once you've uploaded it. And while watching the video, write down which times in hours, minutes, and seconds to enter your offers. Once you're done with that, you'll want to enter the name of your offer. This is just for your reference, as you might create many different offers. In the field below, you'll enter the offer headlines, something such as great opportunity or this is a limited offer, $19.99, buy now for $199, anything that grabs the attention of your attendees to engage them. You also want to upload an image of your offer. Visuals are the hooks that entice people to take a closer look at your product or service. Now, make sure to use the recommended formats as indicated here and upload a high-resolution image. You don't want a blurry visual here. Next, you can add text above the call to action button. Something like a benefit of your service or a brief description of what the offer is. It's not necessary to add this text, so include it as you see fit. Now we have the text inside of the button or the call to action to tell your attendees what you want them to do. Buy now, register now. These are powerful CTAs or calls to action. Now you want to make sure that your attendees go to the right place when they click on the CTA button. Can you imagine if they click on the register now button and they get to an oops, can't find that page? It can happen, so here on the button link field, enter the link where you want your attendees to go. Next is the currency field. Enter only if your offer has a price value, otherwise leave it blank. And lastly, we have an option to apply urgency to this offer. If you want to let your attendees know that the offer will end at the end of the webinar, you can check this box and it'll allow you to enter the time in which you want the offer to end. So let's say that your webinar is 50 minutes long, but you want your attendees to book an appointment at the 45-minute mark. So enter 45 in the minute field. Don't forget to add the hour and seconds. In this case, it'll be zeros. And once you've done that, we have enabled the urgency to the offer. When your attendees see your pop-up offer on the screen, they'll also see a timer indicating that they need to act before the offer expires. Now, you're not required to add urgency to your offers, so if you feel it's not necessary, don't check the box. Once you've completed all the steps, click the Save button. Moving on to the next tab, we have the Redirect to External Website. Okay? In this section, you want to add the page you'd want your attendees to be redirected to at the end of the webinar. This could be your checkout page, your calendar page, or any landing page that you want them to act on, as well as the time that you want your attendees to be redirected to this page. The time you want here, obviously, is the end of your webinar. So if the webinar is 45 minutes and 5 seconds, you'd enter that exact time. So just make sure to enter zeros in the hour field. Something to take into consideration in this section is the new tab checkbox. It is automatically checked, which means that the link that you've entered will open the page in a new window. Some browsers block new windows from opening when this request comes from a redirect. So if your attendee's browser blocks the new page from opening, they won't be able to access your page. So best practice is to simply uncheck this box. Now make sure you click the blue checkmark button to disable. Finally, click the Add button and then confirm to save your redirect. The next stop is the sticky messages. These are just short messages or questions that pop up at certain times during your webinar, and just like enabling the automated chat box, it allows you to post a brief note to grab your attendees' attention. To add sticky notes, just enter the time in which you want the notes to appear and end on the screen and the message that you want to post. For example, you can add a greeting to tell everyone that you're just getting started. Now click on the Add button and you have a sticky note. Repeat the same steps to add more sticky notes. When you're finished, save your work. The last section you'll configure is the live attendees display. If selected, the attendee count displayed will be a random number of participants pre-selected by Everwebinar. The purpose is to give your attendees the feeling someone else is watching with them. Also, if you have enabled the live chat option, your attendees will feel as though there is engagement, which gives social proof. You have 3 options to choose from here. The first is Don't Display. This hides the attendee count. Then you have the Fixed Attendees, which displays a fixed number of participants throughout the webinar, and Display Dynamic Attendees, which will display different numbers during the webinar, and it will increase and decrease at certain times. Here, Everwebinar shows a peak of 100 attendees as an example. If you choose to keep it this way, simply type 100. If not, enter your desired number or 0 and confirm your changes when finished. So let's continue with live sales alerts. This will allow you to show that the other attendees are purchasing the product or service that you're offering on the webinar. Now, even though these aren't real purchases, it will show your attendees that your services are in demand, and that's kind of the point here. All you need to do is enter the time in hours, minutes, and seconds in which you'd like the sale to appear, the name of the person buying, and the product or service purchased, and click the button to save this alert. Now, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. We don't do it with our webinars. This is completely up to you. I'm going over it because it's an Everwebinar option, and if I don't go over it here, you're probably going to wonder what it is. All right, so in doing this, also, you can add as many buyers as you'd like, and these alerts will pop up at the bottom of the screen and at the time that you've selected. So when you're done with that, click confirm to save this step. Now, the last configuration for this section is the file sharing. This option is more helpful if you want to share a small file with your attendees and allow them to download it. To begin, click the Add File button. First, enter the name of the file you'll be uploading, then upload the document you wish to share. Now, enter the time that you'd like to make the file available for your attendees, then enter the time that you'd like to stop sharing your file. If you want to make the file accessible until the end of the webinar, enter zeros in each field. Don't forget to confirm your changes when finished. The last configuration step is the webinar replay. This option is available if you want to allow all your registrants to have access to the replay of your webinar or not. If you choose to allow all your registrants to watch a replay, then check the Enable Webinar Replay page button. Otherwise, check the Disable Replay button. If under the notifications section you are offering a replay by sending an automated email with a link to the replay, then you'll want to enable the replay page, okay? If you fail to enable it, then no one will be able to access the replay page. Make sure to confirm your changes when finished and click the Next button. Now your webinar has been configured and it's ready to be shared. So what's next? Click the main dashboard button to return to the main page. And here you'll see some of your webinar details such as the name and availability of times. Other tools you'll see are the pencil, which allows you to make edits to your webinar. The 2-page icon allows you to clone your webinar, which is very helpful if you want to create multiple webinars and you don't want to start from scratch. And all you'll have to do is replace the information and the links on the new webinar, so it makes it a lot easier. Next is the cogwheel icon, which is for advanced settings. You won't be needing this at this time, so we're going to skip this section. And the X, which deletes the webinar. So be very careful and do not click on this icon unless you're going to delete your presentation. Okay. Now your links, green button has the webinar links that you need to embed on your website or share with potential clients. So to see the links, click on the button to invite people to your webinar. Okay. Highlight the link and right click on the link to copy. Now, once you've done this, insert or paste the link to your email template, Facebook ad, or any social media platform. If you want to embed or insert the page to your website, click on the Embed the Registration box in your website tab and copy the code contained in the box. Paste the code on the website page you would want the registration page to appear. Now next is the direct link to Live Room. This allows you to give someone access to your webinar without having to register. This option is normally used if you're doing a live webinar and want to give someone quick access to your live presentation. Or you can send it to a friend or family member and they can just click on the link and go into the room and watch your recorded webinar. All right, the presenter's login links and replay recording are used for live webinars only, and we won't be discussing this today as the webinars you're going to be creating are really all pre-recorded. At least that's where we're at this point. Now that your links are saved somewhere or embedded on your website, start inviting people to register through your Facebook ad campaign, mass emails with UGrew software, or any of the other marketing ideas that we're going to share with you in your coach training marketing lesson. Hang tight, we're almost there. We're at 50 minutes now, or close to 50 minutes, and we're just on the very downhill stretch, about 20 more slides. One of the last areas I'd like to show you briefly is the analytics section. Analytics will give you the registration and attendance activity for each of your webinars and other important data to keep your webinars optimized. To get your reports, click on the Analytics tab and select the webinar that you want to review. You'll then be able to select the webinar name, the session, and the time frame that you want to check. After you've made these selections, click on the Go button. Now the Analytics page will display all the elements that you need to check the health of your webinar and to see what needs adjusting to achieve higher registration or attendance rates. First, you have the Traffic tab. This section displays the registration and attendance percentage rates. You can also download the results to your registration survey if you have any. Next, you have the split test section. If you have two different registration pages, you can see here which page is getting the most registrants. This helps you determine if you should keep or change one of the registration pages to improve performance. Another section here is the Inside Your Webinar. It tells you the average time your attendees spend watching your webinar, the average engagement, and the dropout rates. By having this information, you can adjust specific times of your webinar. For example, if most attendees are leaving your webinar at the 15-minute mark, ask yourself if you need to improve your presentation at this time or to make an offer to keep the engagement from dropping. Now, if you have an offer or a call to action at this specific time, then people are probably leaving the webinar to take the action that you wanted them to. In this case, this is great news. So make sure to analyze this section carefully, okay? Another analytic here is how many offers or call to actions are being clicked on by your attendees, which helps you keep track of how many people are interested in your offer versus how many purchases are made or how many people booked an appointment. One last thing in this section is the webinar rating. Attendees are given the option to rate your webinar at the end of the presentation. This rating will be displayed as you see here, and we all want 5 stars, right? You also have the monetization tab, which is beneficial if you're asking your attendees to pay to watch the webinar. It also allows you to see how much you are earning and your sales conversion during the webinar. This is not applicable at this time as you'll be redirecting your attendees to external pages, but certainly useful if you're doing a live workshop or training. Also available is the Notifications tab. This is driven by the post-webinar registration and replay emails that you send to your registrants. Here, you can see the click and open rate of each email that you're sending through Everwebinar. The last and most important tab is the registrants and attendees. Here, you'll find the list of all your leads, including email, phone number, if they provide one, the date and time they registered, if they attended the webinar, as well as the time that they entered the webinar room and how much time they spent watching the presentation. This is the most critical information you'll need, and you can sort it out by selecting a specific session, and the time and the type of registrants. This data can also be exported to a spreadsheet by clicking the Export button and import it into your UGrew system for marketing analysis, creating email lists, or even calling. So this is it for Everwebinar. Thanks for sticking with me. I know it was a lot to take in. Remember, if you forget how to configure or make changes to your webinars, you have the option to play short video tutorials on each of the configuration sections. Just ask or you can ask the Everwebinar Facebook community, read some of the training materials, or submit a ticket to Everwebinar. See you in the next class.